Welcome back to Georgian Bay Life, and please welcome back to the show, medium Chris Stillar. We were chatting a little bit earlier in the show that you were on about 6 months ago, yes. I would say.
Back in October.
Yeah, so we had you on in October, and we were talking a little bit in the green room before as well. The last time you were here, you had gotten a sense from someone, and
Yes.
And eerily enough, it sounded very familiar to me. And so we can recap a little bit of the story for people. And actually, you know what? Let's talk about you as a medium first before we start telling the story, because we might confuse people.
Sure.
So let's talk about what a medium is and how you came to become one.
Well, a medium is an individual that is able to pick up on the thoughts and impressions and on the energy of our loved ones that have passed. And as far as it starting for me, it happened just before my 30th birthday. I wasn't a child with it or anything that I'm aware of, but once my grandmother passed away in August of '96, that's when it started, within 2 weeks of her passing.
And was it her that you felt it?
No, I don't get my own family.
No.
I can sense when they're around, but to have a conversation or to pick up their thoughts, it's too hard, because I often wonder, is it just me wanting it?
Fair enough.
So
now, so what we were talking about is you had gotten a sense from a young man who was in a car accident, who had been hit from the side, not knowing that it was coming at all. And you said it wasn't of any relation to anyone in the studio, more like a friend or a neighbor. And I was telling Jeremy, my former co-host, that I work with a lady who lost her son, I guess 3 years ago. It'll be 3 years in November, and in a car accident the exact same way. Mm-hmm. And it sent chills up my body. And so that is why I was saying I'm a little on the fence and
Sure.
a little apprehensive, as are most people, and you said that's the perfect place to be.
I think everybody should be somewhat skeptical. And you know, when my clients come, there's two ends of the spectrum. There's the believers. They're not any better of a client than the skeptics.
Right.
I like people right in the middle. So if you have a healthy skepticism or a questioning about it, that's the way it should be.
And so what do you think it is that makes people skeptical about the whole thing?
Well, it's not scientifically proven.
Right.
It may never get scientifically proven, but you know, when you look at our history on the Earth, there was a lot of things that we didn't know about DNA up until, 25 years ago. So technology's coming along, and maybe eventually they will be able to prove it.
Well, and it goes back to once energy is produced, it never goes anywhere.
It can't. It can be altered, it can change, but it can't die.
And so let's talk about someone who comes in to see you, some of your clients, and what kind of information do you need from them in order to do a reading?
Nothing. I don't even talk to them ahead of time. I have my wife who does all my bookings. I purposely do not talk to them, because sometimes people can be a little chatty, and or if they've just suffered a severe loss, they can be in desperate mode and say way too much. So my wife will handle the bookings, and all I ever have in my calendar is their first name and a phone number.
Wow. And then that way there's no doubt in there.
Well, you'll still have the odd person that says I could search them on 411 or check them on the internet, but honest to goodness, I don't have the inclination or the time or the need, so I don't bother. But I never try to disprove it to people. The information that tends to come through in a reading is nothing you would ever get on the internet.
Right. And it's sort of, now what about, because you used to see it a lot on daytime television. I mean, the mediums would come on and be able to pick someone out in the audience, and
Sure.
and sort of everyone can relate to one minor thing, because a lot of the time it's very broad.
You mean John Edward when he was on?
Yes.
He's not broad. But, it depends on your perspective of how you're watching it. There are some that are better than others. It's not a skill set that is across the board that you can judge or mark. It comes in an individual place. So if, whether it was me or another medium that read you, Jennifer, the information that came through, you could be the only judge of that. Now, if somebody's watching it out in TV land, they wouldn't know your family. They wouldn't know the small details, or they wouldn't know what was just said that made those chills go up your spine.
Right.
Because it sounds generic. But to the individual, it could be very specific.
Now, is there a way for you to practice what you do? Or is it just something that you have no control over?
No, no, I don't practice, but being as busy as I am and doing it for 15 years, it's like a muscle you build. The more you use it, you can use it in your everyday life as far as the psychic end goes, where you can play little games about what color is the car coming around the bend, you know, tap into your intuition that way. But as far as the deceased people or the people in spirit, you can't tell people what to do in life, and you certainly can't do it in spirit, so you can't make them come through.
No. Can you turn it off?
Yeah, well, yes, but if they need me or if they got to come through, it really doesn't matter what I'm doing.
And so what do you, at that moment when they're coming to you, what do you do with that information if you're not necessarily with someone that you can give it to?
Well, I kind of harness it and keep it and play it over in my head, or they keep consistently bringing it up, and then when the time's right, I deliver it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, we have a whole other segment with you. So, because one of our PAs recently lost his father and was sort of wondering if there was anything that you could tell him about his father, if you got anything from that.
If something should come through, I would definitely do it. I actually have a woman that I've been picking up on, a mother figure that's passed. So I'd been picking up on her on my drive up here.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Now, and you said a little bit earlier that it was someone in the studio, or do you think it was a
Well, I think
guest?
it might be a female camera person. I'm not sure, but they were telling me at home there'd be a female camera person, and you have two here. So I knew it would be in this direction because I've been on the set before, but all I knew was that I had a mom or a mother figure coming through. I felt like there was probably some cancerous or like a debilitating disease that way, but very much lung-based, chest-based, fluid in the lungs that were coming through.
Okay.
So ultimately it could be like a heart failure or a congestive heart failure, but there is a cancer connection or a previous disease.
Welcome back to Georgian Bay Life. Joined with me now is Chris Stillar, medium, and Chris, you have a book coming up that's
I do.
In a couple of months that you'll be launching.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about your book.
Sure. It's called Pennies from Heaven. It's been a long time in the making, but it is in the hands of the publisher right now, and probably within 2 to 3 months it should be out.
And what was the inspiration behind putting together a book?
Well, the book talks a little bit about my life growing up, not a lot, a little bit, and then it launches into how this started for me in more detail. And I really wanted the book to be able to help everyday people that have these experiences after they lose somebody and not know what to do with it or what they're looking for, what they're connecting with. So hopefully my experiences will help the people that read it, and the stories that I write about in there are factual stories, and some of them are actual taken verbatim from readings.
Really?
Yeah.
That'll help a lot of the skeptics out as well, I think.
Well, they can still think I lied about it or embellished it maybe, but a skeptic will be a skeptic, and there's nothing you can do about it.
That's what I was talking to Melanie. Like, I've had 2 people pass in my life that are really the only 2 people that I would ever care to hear from, and I don't feel like another spirit would ever come to me because I was never close to anyone else who has passed.
If what I said to you 6 months ago was accurate, that young man knew to come through, to work through you to get word to his mother.
Right.
So they are ingenious on coming through and finding ways to get it through in the shortest possible route, and to do it through a skeptic. How brilliant is that?
It's true, and I mean, no, people at home don't know who Catherine is that I work with, but her and I have created this friendship, and we both trust each other, and she's very sensitive about the topic and doesn't talk to a lot of people about it. And I just thought it was unique that it was me that he chose to talk to.
And it's always based on need. She had the need, unbeknownst to me, but he knew it.
Right. And I do want to let you know that Catherine, she asked me not just recently about you and about coming to see you, and she wanted to make an appointment. She was finally ready, and I just think it's a little bizarre that here you are on our show this week. So
timing's everything.
It's true.
No coincidences.
No. Well, and so besides the one parental female that you got, was that the only?
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot coming through today, so I'm not sure my purpose for being here.
Well, just to talk about it.
Well, that's good, and I appreciate that.
And had an experience similar to with someone who was clairvoyant. My father got in contact with him, and just the whole episode of events was strange, but it was so comforting to know that you might still be able to be in contact with someone that you've lost.
Definitely, and if you think of us as being energy, which we are scientifically, you can't destroy energy, so it's going somewhere. Now the question is, can this guy from Lyle connect with it? That's the big question. But there's many people that can. It's not just me.
Right. It's very interesting to me, and the whole process of coming to see you would be fantastic. But like myself and a lot of people, I would be sad if certain spirits didn't come to me.
And it happens. You know, I've had bereaved parents where the child didn't come through, but the mother-in-law did. And the wife didn't want to hear from the mother-in-law. She wanted her daughter or something, you know. Yesterday I did a phone reading for a woman from Ottawa, and the first sentence I said to her, she stopped me on the phone and she said, "You've just made this worthwhile for me." And I said, "What did I say?" And she said, "You just confirmed the way my son was killed," because I talked about this flying through the air, being impacted, and the breaking of the neck. And she said, that hasn't been confirmed to me yet from the autopsy, because he was hit by a drunk driver. And this happened 10 months ago. So she said, "You have just validated everything that I felt, but nobody could tell me yet."
Wow.
So for her, the first words out of my mouth made that worthwhile for her. But there was no guarantees he would come through, but he did.
No. And so do you have a lot of stories like that where instantly people were able to connect to something that you'd said to them?
Yes, it happens a lot. One of the things in my book, Pennies from Heaven, the stories I tell very quickly, was a woman that took 3 years to tell the story properly. When I first met her in a public performance, her murdered son was coming through to her, and this was up in Gravenhurst. And then, unbeknownst to me, she came for a private reading a year later, and I didn't know who she was because there was 200 people in the audience that first night. She walked through the door, and the son was coming through again. I had to tell that woman she was dying. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but the son was so insistent, and I told her. And long story short, over 2 more readings, she found out when she was going to die, and she died on that day, and it's in the book.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it was very comforting for her. She had Lou Gehrig's disease.
Really? So she was okay with knowing?
Yeah, because her son was going to greet her. It's a heartwarming story.
Goosebumps.
And it's true.
Yeah, I definitely have goosebumps. So, Chris, can you just tell everyone everyone at home how they can get in touch with you?
Through my website, spiritualmedium.ca, or by calling 705-424-2189.
And will you be doing any more of these public events?
Yeah, I think I have one coming up the end of May as a fundraiser for cancer, and I think it'll be held in Everett. And I'm sure when my book is launched, I'll be busy in the fall with them.
Well, Chris, thank you so much, and we appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you again once the book launches as well.
Thanks, Dan.
Welcome back to Georgian Bay Life as we wrap up another fantastic episode of our show. Melanie and I are both sort of in awe with Chris Stillar.
I have chills, and when you were talking to him and going through the discussions of his past stories and people that he's been able to give information to, it's
incredible.
It is incredible. It is very incredible, and it is something that unless it happens to you, you can sit back and you can just sort of look at from an outward point, but when you actually have him come and say something to you on a deep level that means something to you, and you know specifically it could be just one word.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. And Chris just got a sense that and got a message to Steve, our PA, from his dad who recently passed. So I mean, it's.
He said he's been fishing.
Yeah, and one of Steve's fondest memories with his father was when the two of them were fishing, and it happened once. So.
Oh my God.